My name is Kylie Torres, and at 55 I thought I knew everything about reading the currents. Lake Michigan had been my classroom for 2 decades, teaching privileged Chicagoans how to balance on boards they'd abandoned by Labor Day. But nothing prepared me for the wave that hit me that Tuesday morning. I'd barely slept. Another exhausting week of hand-holding 30-something executives who thought money could buy coordination. My lakefront studio felt smaller each morning, cluttered with wetsuits and broken dreams. The online conference was just another obligation, something about innovative water therapy techniques. I clicked into the virtual seminar room, coffee in hand, expecting the usual parade of fitness gurus peddling nonsense. Instead, a blonde woman appeared on my screen, her presentation titled Therapeutic Touch in Athletic Recovery. She had serious blue eyes and spoke with quiet authority about muscle memory and healing. Something about her voice made me lean forward. Professional, yes, but there was warmth underneath. When she mentioned incorporating water-based therapy with massage techniques, I found myself taking actual notes. The body remembers trauma, she was saying, but it also remembers pleasure. Touch can unlock both. I typed a question in the chat about pressure points for Surfer's shoulder. Her eyes lit up when she read it aloud. Excellent question from Kylie Torres. Are you working with board athletes? Heat crept up my neck. Professional distance, I reminded myself. But her smile seemed directed straight at me through the screen. I teach surfing on Lake Michigan. Shoulder injuries are epidemic. I'd love to discuss that further. The intersection of water sports and therapeutic massage is fascinating. The conference ended, but a private message popped up immediately. Addison White here. Your insights about wave resistance therapy were brilliant. Coffee sometime? I stared at the message for 3 minutes. She was younger, obviously successful, probably had a dozen better uses for her time. But her presentation had been unlike anything I'd heard in years. Real knowledge, not marketing fluff. Sure. I know a place by the water. Perfect. I should warn you, I'm thinking about taking surf lessons. Purely professional interest, of course. Of course. I typed back, my rates are reasonable. I wasn't asking about money. The screen went dark, leaving me alone with the implications of that statement. Outside, Lake Michigan stretched endlessly, its surface deceptively calm. I'd spent decades teaching people to read water, to anticipate the unexpected, but I had no idea what kind of current I'd just stepped into. My phone buzzed with her number and a simple message, looking forward to meeting the woman behind the voice. I set the phone down with shaking hands. At 55, I thought I was done with surprises. The lake had other plans. 3 days after our virtual meeting, Addison White stood on my pier. At dawn, looking nothing like her polished conference appearance. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, workout clothes, hugging a frame that suggested serious dedication to fitness. The morning light caught her blue eyes, making them seem deeper than they'd appeared on screen. You're punctual, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Most clients show up fashionably late. I'm not most clients. She wasn't. While I explained basic safety protocols, she listened with complete focus, asking technical questions that surprised me. No giggling, no nervous chatter about being afraid of water. Just professional curiosity mixed with something else I couldn't identify. The key is reading the waves before they read you, I explained, demonstrating paddle position on the beach. Lake Michigan isn't the ocean, but she has her own personality. Tell me about her personality. I found myself talking longer than usual, describing current patterns and wind shifts with more passion than I'd felt in months. Addison absorbed every word, occasionally asking questions that showed she understood the deeper principles. When we finally entered the water, her natural athletic ability became obvious. She moved through the shallows with surprising grace, balancing on the board with minimal wobbling. Most beginners spent the first session face down in the water. You've done this before, I accused, steadying her board as a gentle swell approached. Yoga, Pilates, some martial arts training. Her hand brushed mine as she adjusted her stance, sending an unexpected jolt through my system. Professional distance, I reminded myself. But the way she looked at me suggested professional wasn't her only interest. Ready for a real wave? I asked. She nodded, and I gave her board a gentle push as the perfect beginner wave rolled toward shore. She caught it flawlessly, riding the small break with obvious joy. When she paddled back, her smile was radiant. Again? We spent 2 hours in the water. She fell exactly twice, both times laughing as she surfaced. By the end, she was catching waves independently, her movements becoming more fluid with each attempt. "Coffee?" she asked as we loaded boards into my truck. "I know you mentioned a place by the water." The cafe was nearly empty, just us and the morning regulars reading newspapers. Addison ordered black coffee, no sugar, no cream. Serious coffee for a serious woman. "So," she said, settling across from me, "how long have you been teaching?" 20 years. Started after my competitive days ended. Competitive? Nothing glamorous. Regional circuits, some national events. Good enough to make a living. Not good enough to make history. She leaned forward slightly. "I doubt that. Your technique is flawless. The way you read the water, anticipate the sets. That's not just teaching experience." Heat crept up my neck again. When was the last time someone had really seen me, not just the service I provided? "What about you? Massage therapy wasn't your first career choice, was it?" "Physical therapy, actually. But I wanted more control, less insurance paperwork. Therapeutic massage lets me focus on actual healing." Her hands wrapped around the coffee mug, and I found myself studying them. Strong fingers, short nails, hands that knew how to work. The thought of those hands on skin made my mouth go dry. "Same time next week?" she asked, interrupting my dangerous thoughts. "If you want to continue." She stood, leaving money on the table despite my protests. "I want to continue a lot of things, Kylie." Our eyes met for a long moment, and I felt something shift between us. She leaned down, ostensibly to grab her jacket, but brought her lips close to my ear. "Thank you for today. All of it." Her breath was warm against my skin, and when she pulled back, her hand briefly touched my shoulder. Then she was gone, leaving me alone with my racing heart and the lingering scent of her shampoo. I sat there for another 20 minutes, staring at the lake and trying to convince myself this was just another client relationship, but the way she'd looked at me, the careful way she'd chosen her words, suggested we were both lying to ourselves about what was really happening. At 55, I thought I knew all about dangerous currents. Addison White was proving me wrong. The third lesson changed everything. Addison arrived with the same punctuality, but something in her demeanor had shifted. More confident, more direct. She'd been practicing, she told me, visualizing wave patterns like I'd taught her. "Show me," I said, and watched her demonstrate perfect pop-up technique on the sand. In the water, she was transformed. What had been natural ability now looked like genuine skill. She caught wave after wave, her movements flowing with increasing grace. I found myself watching her more than the conditions, mesmerized by the way she moved. "You're a natural," I called out as she paddled back from another perfect ride. "Good teacher," she replied, but her eyes said more. During our 4th week, the touches became less accidental. Her hand on my arm when I explained a technique. My fingers lingering on her back as I adjusted her position. The space between us charged with unspoken possibilities. "You know," she said one morning, toweling off after an particularly good session, "I've been thinking about what you said about reading currents." "What about it?" "Sometimes you have to trust the water, even when you can't see where it's taking you." I knew we weren't talking about surfing anymore. The 5th week brought our first real conversation. Over coffee, she told me about her struggles with family expectations, the pressure to settle down with someone appropriate. I shared my own history, the relationships that had crashed against my independence like waves against rocks. "Age is just numbers," she said quietly, stirring sugar into her coffee. "But experience, that's different, that's valuable." "Addison." I know what you're thinking. The age difference, the professional boundaries. But when was the last time you felt something real? The question hung between us like morning fog over the lake. When was the last time? Years, maybe decades. Our 6th lesson coincided with a storm warning. I should have canceled, but she'd already driven to the pier. Dark clouds gathered on the horizon, and the wind was picking up. "We should head in," I said. But she was studying the approaching weather with professional interest. 5 more minutes? "I want to try riding the chop." The storm hit faster than predicted. What started as manageable waves turned dangerous quickly. By the time we reached shore, we were both soaked and laughing from the adrenaline rush. "My place is closer," I said, noting her shivering. "You can dry off there." My beach house was small but warm-weathered wood and huge windows facing the lake. I handed her a towel and started a fire while rain lashed the windows. "This is beautiful," she said, studying the photographs on my walls. "Competition shots, travel pictures, a life lived on the water. You've been everywhere. Felt like running sometimes." From what? The question was simple, but the answer was complicated. From expectations, from disappointment, from the fear that I'd never find someone who understood that the water wasn't just my job, it was my soul. She moved closer, close enough that I could smell her skin over the wood smoke. "Kylie?" Her voice was soft, questioning, asking permission for something we both wanted but hadn't dared name. When I looked up, she was right there, close enough to see the flecks of gray in her blue eyes, close enough to feel her breath on my face. "This is complicated," I whispered. "The best things usually are." She leaned forward slowly, giving me time to pull away. I didn't. Her lips touched mine softly at first, then with growing intensity as I responded. She tasted like coffee and possibility, like everything I'd been denying myself for years. When we broke apart, we were both breathing hard. "Stay," I said, surprising myself with the boldness. "The storm's not letting up anyway." Her answer was another kiss, deeper this time, her hands tangling in my hair. Outside, thunder rolled across the lake, but inside, we created our own storm. We moved to the couch, then to the bedroom, shedding wet clothes and inhibitions with equal urgency. Her body was strong from years of physical work, responsive to every touch. When she arched beneath my hands, gasping my name, I felt more alive than I had in decades. Later, as rain drummed against the windows and she traced patterns on my skin, she whispered, "I've wanted this since that first video call. Why didn't you say something?" Would you have believed me? Probably not. At 55, I'd learned to doubt grand gestures and passionate declarations. But this felt different, real in a way that had nothing to do with age or expectations. "What happens now?" she asked, her head on my shoulder. Outside, the storm was passing, but I could feel another one building between us. Bigger, more dangerous, with the power to change everything. "Now," I said, kissing her forehead, "we see where the current takes us." 3 days of silence. 3 days since I'd held Addison in my arms, felt her heartbeat against mine, whispered promises I wasn't sure I could keep. 3 days of staring at my phone, typing messages I didn't send, imagining worst-case scenarios that probably weren't far from reality. At 55, I should have known better. Should have recognized the panic for what it was, fear disguised as wisdom, cowardice dressed up as experience. But knowing and feeling are different things, and what I felt was terror. The age gap that had seemed insignificant during our storm-swept night now loomed like a chasm. What did I have to offer someone like her? Someone young, talented, with decades of possibilities ahead? I'd been selfish, letting desire override common sense. So I did what I always did when emotions got complicated. I ran. Canceled her next lesson via text message. Professional scheduling conflict, I'd written. The lie tasted bitter even as I typed it. Tuesday morning brought her to my surf shop anyway. I was reorganizing rental equipment for the 3rd time when the bell chimed. She stood in the doorway wearing jeans and a fitted sweater, her blonde hair catching the morning light. Beautiful and furious. "Scheduling conflict?" she asked, voice tight with controlled anger. I couldn't meet her eyes. Things are busy this time of year. "Cut the shit, Kylie. What happened between us meant something. You don't get to pretend it didn't." She moved between me and the wetsuit rack, forcing me to face her. Her blue eyes blazed with hurt and determination. "It was a mistake," I said, hating myself for the lie. "I'm 55 years old. You're 34. This was bound to end badly." Says who? You. The same woman who spent 20 years teaching people to trust the water, to take risks. That's different. How is it different? How is this any less worth fighting for? I turned away, but she grabbed my arm. "Look at me, damn it. Tell me what we shared didn't matter." Her touch burned through my shirt sleeve. In her eyes, I saw the same vulnerability I felt. The same desperate hope I was trying to kill. It mattered, I whispered. That's why it can't continue. That makes no sense. She was right, but sense had fled the building days ago. You deserve someone your own age, someone who can give you a future. What if I want you? What if I don't care about age or future or any of the excuses you're using to push me away? Her voice cracked on the last word, and I realized she was close to tears. This strong, confident woman was breaking apart because of my cowardice. Addison. No. You don't get to Addison me with that pitying tone. Either this is real or it isn't. Either you want me or you don't. Stop hiding behind numbers. The shop fell quiet except for the sound of wind chimes outside and my thundering heartbeat. She stood there waiting, daring me to be honest for once in my carefully controlled life. I want you, I said finally. Damn it, I want you so much it scares me. Then why? Because I've been hurt before. Because every relationship I've tried has crashed against my independence, my connection to the water, my inability to be what someone else needs. Did you ask me what I need? The question stopped me cold. Had I? Or had I simply assumed, projected my past failures onto our beginning? What do you need? I asked. She stepped closer, close enough to touch. You, exactly as you are. Your experience, your strength, your passion for the water. Your stubborn independence that makes you push away the one person brave enough to see past your defenses. Before I could respond, she cupped my face in her hands and kissed me. Right there in the shop, with the door unlocked and customers potentially watching. She kissed me with fierce determination, as if she could force sense back into my terrified brain through sheer will. When we broke apart, I was breathless and shaking. I don't care about the age difference, she whispered against my lips. I don't care what people think. I care about you, about us, about not wasting something precious because you're afraid. I am afraid, I admitted, terrified. Good. That means it matters. She stepped back, leaving me aching for her touch. I'm going to ask you one more time, and then I'm walking away. Do you want to see where this goes, or are you going to let fear win? Outside, Lake Michigan stretched endlessly toward the horizon. For 20 years, I'd taught people to read its moods, to trust its currents even when they couldn't see the destination. Now it was my turn to practice what I preached. Stay, I said, reaching for her hand. Please stay. Her smile was radiant, transforming her face from hurt to hopeful in seconds. About damn time. This time, when she kissed me, I kissed her back without reservations. Whatever came next, we'd face it together. The water had taught me that some currents are worth following, even when you can't see where they lead. 2 weeks later, we fell into a rhythm that felt surprisingly natural. Lessons 3 times a week, dinners afterward, stolen kisses in the equipment shed when other clients weren't around. I was learning to navigate this new current, letting myself believe that maybe, just maybe, this could work. Which made Saturday morning's text from Addison feel like a lifeline disguised as an invitation. Women's rights rally downtown. Want to join me? Important cause? The Planned Parenthood clinic was facing closure threats from city council pressure. Basic health care for women was at stake, and despite my usual avoidance of political gatherings, this felt personal. Too many women needed these services, deserved better than politicians playing games with their bodies. We met at Grant Park, joining hundreds of others carrying signs and wearing purple. Addison looked fierce in jeans and a clinic support t-shirt, her blonde hair pulled back for business. She introduced me to other activists, and I was surprised how natural it felt to have her hand in mine, to be seen as a couple fighting for something meaningful. Thanks for coming, she said as we found spots in the crowd. I know this isn't usually your thing. It is now. The rally was peaceful, energizing even. Speakers shared stories about the clinic's impact, doctors explained the medical necessity of the services, and politicians promised to fight the closure. Addison squeezed my hand during particularly moving testimonies, and I found myself proud to stand beside her. Everything changed when someone threw a bottle from across the street. The crowd tensed, but we held formation. Then more bottles, and counter-protesters with ugly signs appeared. The peaceful atmosphere deteriorated fast. Stay close, I told Addison, but the crowd was pushing us forward toward the confrontation. When the first police sirens wailed, my stomach dropped. Not because we were doing anything wrong, but because I knew how these things could escalate. Young cops, nervous energy, political pressure to break up anything that looked disruptive. We should leave, I said, but the crowd was too thick, movement too restricted. The arrest started at the front of the group. Peaceful protesters, hands raised, being zip-tied and loaded into vans. No warnings, no dispersal orders. Just systematic roundups that made my blood boil. "This is wrong," Addison said, and before I could stop her, she was helping an older woman who'd been shoved by an officer. That's when they grabbed her. "Hey!" I shouted, pushing through the crowd as two officers wrestled Addison toward the van. "She wasn't doing anything!" "Ma'am, step back or you'll be arrested too." "Good. Arrest me too." Not my smartest moment, but watching them manhandle her triggered every protective instinct I possessed. They obliged my request, slapping zip ties on my wrists with unnecessary force. In the van, we were separated. Different vehicles, different destinations. I caught Addison's eye through the rear window as we pulled away, her face pale but determined. She mouthed, "I'm okay," before the van turned the corner. Cook County lockup was exactly as depressing as expected. Gray walls, fluorescent lighting, the smell of disinfectant failing to mask less pleasant odors. They processed us separately, took our phones, our dignity, our freedom for exercising constitutional rights. My cellmate was a weathered woman in her 70s who'd been arrested for blocking a clinic entrance. Not the kind of blocking I opposed, but sitting in solidarity with patients trying to get through harassment lines. "First time?" she asked, noting my obvious discomfort with the accommodations. "Yeah. Gets easier. Name's Ruth. You?" "Kylie? I'm here because my girlfriend tried to help during the arrests." The word slipped out before I could catch it. Girlfriend. I'd never used that term with anyone, never felt the need to claim or be claimed. But sitting in jail, worried about Addison, it felt absolutely right. "She sounds like a keeper," Ruth said with a knowing smile. Meanwhile, wherever Addison was locked up, she was probably handling the situation with her usual grace, making friends, organizing, turning a bad situation into something productive. The thought made me smile despite our circumstances. 6 hours later, they released us with citations and court dates. I found Addison outside the building, talking animatedly with a young woman I didn't recognize. When she saw me, her face lit up. "Kylie!" She ran over and threw her arms around me, not caring who saw. "Are you okay?" They wouldn't tell me anything. "Fine you?" "Met some amazing women." "This is Haley Wilson," she said, indicating her companion. "She's been organizing protests for 2 years, knows every trick the cops use." Haley looked barely old enough to vote, but her handshake was firm and her eyes held the intensity of someone who'd seen too much too young. "Your girlfriend's got good instincts," she told me. "Kept everyone calm in lockup, made sure the younger girls knew their rights." My girlfriend. There was that word again, flowing naturally from a stranger's lips. This time I didn't flinch. "We should celebrate," Addison said as Haley headed toward the subway. "Surviving our first arrest together. Is that a thing couples do?" She turned to face me fully, studying my expression. "Are we a couple?" The question hung between us like morning fog, requiring navigation. 2 weeks ago, I'd been ready to run from the possibility. Now, after watching her stand up for what she believed in, after feeling genuine terror at the thought of losing her, the answer seemed obvious. "Yes," I said, pulling her closer. "Definitely yes." When she kissed me right there on the courthouse steps with protesters still milling around and cops watching from their cars, I knew we'd crossed another line. This wasn't just attraction or convenience. This was partnership, commitment, the terrifying and exhilarating prospect of building something real together. "Come on," I said, taking her hand. "Let's go home." Our first arrest, our first public declaration, our first real step toward whatever came next. The water was deeper now, but I was finally ready to swim. 3 weeks after our arrest, life had settled into something resembling normal. Addison was spending most nights at my place, her massage practice thriving with referrals from my surf students. We'd found our rhythm, professional and personal boundaries blurring in ways that felt right. Then Maya showed up. I was reorganizing the rental equipment when the shop bell chimed on Tuesday morning. I looked up, expecting a client, and froze. Maya Torres stood in the doorway like a ghost from my carefully buried past, her dark hair shorter than I remembered, but her predatory smile unchanged. "Hello, Kylie." My ex-girlfriend of 5 years looked exactly like trouble in designer. Jeans and a leather jacket that cost more than most people's rent. She'd always known how to make an entrance, how to command attention. At 38, she still moved with the calculated grace of someone who viewed every interaction as a negotiation. "Maya, what do you want? Straight to business?" "No, hello, how are you? Nice to see you." "It's not nice to see me, and we both know it." "What do you want?" She moved through the shop like she owned it, trailing expensive perfume and examining equipment with fake interest. "I heard you've been busy. New students, new activities. Heard you got arrested." News traveled fast in Chicago's small lesbian community. Maya had always maintained her network, cultivating information like other people collected art. "If you came here to lecture me about politics, I came because I miss you." The words hit like cold water. I set down the wetsuit I'd been folding and really looked at her. Same beautiful face, same designer everything, same ability to lie without blinking. Miss me? Or miss what I provided? Both, maybe. We were good together, Kylie, before things got complicated. Complicated. Her euphemism for the day I'd discovered her seeing 3 other women while claiming to want exclusive commitment. Maya had always been gifted at rewriting history. We were never good together. We were convenient. The shop door chimed again, and Addison walked in carrying coffee and bakery bags. She stopped when she saw Maya, her expression shifting from surprise to assessment in seconds. "Am I interrupting something?" Maya turned with obvious interest, cataloging Addison from head to toe with the practiced eye of someone evaluating competition. "You must be the massage therapist." Maya Torres, Kylie's business partner. Former business partner, I corrected quickly. Former everything. But Addison was studying Maya with professional curiosity, taking in the expensive clothes, the perfectly styled hair, the confidence that money and manipulation had built. I could see her calculating ages, histories, connections. "Business partner in what?" Addison asked, setting the coffee on my counter. Maya smiled like a shark scenting blood. "The lakefront property, the equipment rental agreements, several very lucrative contracts that we developed together. I still own 30% of everything you see here." My blood pressure spiked. "You own nothing. We dissolved that partnership when you moved to California. Verbal agreements aren't legally binding, darling. Written contracts are." She pulled folded papers from her purse, spreading them on the counter like playing cards. Legal documents, partnership agreements, loan guarantees with both our signatures, papers I'd forgotten about, buried under years of trying to erase her from my life. Addison moved closer, reading over my shoulder. Her presence steadied me even as Maya's revelation sent every muscle into fight-or-flight mode. "These are 5 years old," Addison said calmly. "Statute of limitations might apply." Maya's smile sharpened. Spoken like someone with legal experience. "But these contracts have renewal clauses, and I never formally dissolved my stake. Kylie's been making profitable use of my initial investment all this time." "What do you want?" I asked, though I already knew. "Partnership reinstatement, or buyout at current market value. This location alone is worth triple what it was 5 years ago." The number she mentioned made my knees weak. Money I didn't have, could never raise without selling everything I'd built. My life's work held hostage by a woman I'd tried to forget. You can't just appear after 5 years and demand. I can demand exactly what the contracts specify. Unless, of course, we can work something else out. Her tone carried implications that made my skin crawl. Maya had always believed everything and everyone had a price, that the right combination of pressure and seduction could accomplish anything. "There's nothing to work out," Addison said firmly. "If you have legal claims, pursue them through proper channels. Don't come here making threats." Maya's attention fixed on Addison with new interest. "Protective, isn't she? How refreshing." Kylie always attracted strays who wanted to save her from herself. "Watch it," I warned. But Maya was just getting started. "Tell me, massage therapist, what do you really know about Kylie's history? The businesses she's run into the ground? The promises she's broken? The pattern of self-sabotage that destroyed our relationship? I know she's twice the person you'll ever be." The words came out like a challenge, Addison stepping closer to Maya with the kind of controlled aggression I'd seen in competitive athletes. Physical confidence meeting psychological manipulation. Maya laughed. Young love, how precious. Give it 6 months, honey. Kylie will find some excuse to push you away too. It's what she does. Get out, I said, my voice deadly quiet. Now. I'm not going anywhere, darling. Chicago is my home too. And this business is partially mine, whether you like it or not. Expect to hear from my lawyer. She gathered the papers and headed for the door, pausing for one final shot. Enjoy the honeymoon phase. Massage therapist. Reality hits hard when it comes. The shop felt contaminated after she left. I sank onto the stool behind the counter, hands shaking with rage and fear and something close to despair. Addison locked the door and flipped the sign to closed. Then she came to me, taking my hands in her steady grip. Hey. Look at me. Whatever this is, we'll figure it out. You don't understand. If she has legal claims to the business, I could lose everything. The shop, the equipment, maybe even the house. Then we fight. Get our own lawyer, challenge the contracts, find loopholes. With what money? Legal fights take years and cost fortunes. She was quiet for a moment, thumbs tracing circles on my palms. What if we didn't fight? What if we did something else? Like what? Like make this place so successful she'd be crazy not to sell her stake back to us. Like turning your surf instruction into something bigger, more profitable. I looked into her blue eyes, seeing determination where I expected to find fear. This woman who barely knew me was ready to fight for what we were building together. Why? I asked. Why would you take this on? Because I love you. Because this matters. Because Maya Torres doesn't get to destroy what we have just because she's bored in California. The words hit me like a revelation. She loved me. This complicated, beautiful, impossible thing between us was love, and she was brave enough to name it, even when everything was falling apart. I love you too, I whispered, and kissed her like she was the only solid thing in a shifting world. Outside, Lake Michigan stretched toward the horizon, indifferent to human dramas and legal threats. But inside my shop, holding the woman who'd just declared war on my past, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Hope. 2 months later, we were fighting back the only way we knew how, by building something Maya could never understand or control. The Taurus White Wellness Retreat was taking shape, combining my surf instruction with Addison's therapeutic massage in ways that were attracting attention from boutique hotels and corporate wellness programs. Pride Month arrived with perfect timing. After years of avoiding Chicago's festival, I found myself wanting to celebrate openly with Addison. We'd survived Maya's initial legal threats, found a lawyer willing to work on contingency, and were documenting every procedural error in those ancient contracts. You sure about this? Addison asked, applying sunscreen to my shoulders before we joined the parade crowd. It's going to be loud, crowded, very public. I'm sure. We have nothing to hide. Lakeshore Drive was transformed into a celebration of everything Maya's narrow world couldn't comprehend. Rainbow flags, music, families, couples, individuals claiming their authentic selves in defiance of anyone who thought love came with restrictions. Addison wore a tank top that showed off her athletic arms and a pride flag as a cape. I'd chosen a simple sundress, feeling surprisingly comfortable in my own skin for the first time in years. Walking hand in hand through the crowds, being seen as a couple, felt like stepping into sunlight after decades in shadow. Look. Addison pointed to a booth run by the clinic we'd been arrested defending. They're still operating. We stopped to buy t-shirts and learned that the city council had backed down under public pressure. Our arrest, along with dozens of others, had actually strengthened community support. Sometimes standing up for something worked. The festival buzzed with energy, but it was the quiet moments that mattered most. Addison introducing me to her friends as her girlfriend. My arm around her waist as we listened to speakers talk about love without limits. The way she looked at me when the sun caught my hair just right. I have something for you, she said during a lull between performances, pulling a small wrapped box from her backpack. Addison, you don't need to. Just open it. Inside was a simple silver bracelet with a single charm. A tiny surfboard. Elegant, understated, perfect. So, you remember where we started, she said, fastening it around my wrist. Before Maya, before the legal mess, before everything got complicated. It's beautiful. She kissed me right there in the middle of Grant Park, with thousands of people celebrating around us and photographers documenting the day. For once, I didn't care who was watching. We were heading toward the food trucks when my phone buzzed. Maya's number, which I'd never deleted despite better judgment. "Don't answer it," Addison said, but voicemail picked up anyway. The message was brief and venomous. "Enjoying your little parade, darling? Check your email. Some business matters require immediate attention." My stomach clenched, but Addison squeezed my hand. "Whatever it is, we deal with it later. Today is ours." She was right. Maya didn't get to poison this day, this celebration of who we were together. I turned off my phone and focused on the festival, on Addison's laughter, on the community we'd found. But later that evening, safe in my living room with lake music drifting through open windows, I couldn't avoid reality any longer. Maya's email was waiting with attachments that made my blood pressure spike. Equipment rental cancellations, 3 of my biggest corporate clients pulling their contracts, citing concerns about business stability, whispered rumors about financial irregularities, partnership disputes, unreliable service. "She's sabotaging the business," I told Addison, showing her the documents, "calling clients directly, planting doubts, making me look unstable." "Can she do that legally?" "Probably not, but proving it would take months. Meanwhile, I'm losing income. We need to fight her legal claims." Addison was quiet for a long time, studying the cancellation letters. "What if we turned this around? Used her attacks to our advantage?" "How?" "These clients are canceling surf instruction, right? But what if we offered them something Maya can't touch, something completely new that combines both our skills?" She pulled out her laptop, fingers flying across the keyboard. "Wellness retreats, corporate team building, therapeutic water sports programs. Services that require both of us, that she has no claim to." The website mock-up she created was gorgeous. Professional photos from our lessons, testimonials from massage clients, package, deals for everything from weekend retreats to week-long corporate programs. "The Torres White Wellness Retreat," she said proudly. "Equal partnership, shared vision, something that's completely ours." "Torres White?" "Unless you prefer white Torres. Though Torres White sounds more exotic." Looking at the website, at her excited face, at the future she was designing for us, I felt something shift. Maya could sabotage my surf instruction business, but she couldn't touch what Addison and I were building together. "How do we finance this? Marketing, insurance, legal protection?" "Same way everyone starts a business. Faith, coffee, and credit cards." She kissed me then, soft and sure, her hands tangling in my hair. "We can do this, Kylie. We can build something beautiful together. What if Maya finds a way to destroy this too? Then we build something else, and something else after that, until she gets tired of fighting people who refuse to give up." Outside, fireworks from Navy Pier lit up the lake in celebration of Pride weekend. Addison curled against me on the couch, her head on my shoulder, her breathing slow and content. "Thank you," I whispered into her hair. "For what?" "For seeing possibilities where I only see problems. For fighting Maya when I wanted to surrender. For loving me enough to turn my biggest weakness into our strength. Your independence isn't a weakness. It's why I fell for you in the first place." She was wrong about that, but I didn't argue. Independence had been my shield for so long, I'd forgotten it could also be a foundation, something to build on instead of hide behind. My phone buzzed with another message from Maya, but I didn't check it. Whatever poison she was spreading could wait until tomorrow. Tonight belonged to us, to the future we were creating, to the partnership that was becoming stronger with every challenge. The bracelet Addison had given me caught the light from the fireworks, the tiny surfboard charm spinning gently. "Where we started," she'd said, but looking at the woman in my arms and the business plan glowing on her laptop screen, I knew this was just the beginning. The Torres White Wellness Retreat launched with more success than we'd dared hope. Within 6 weeks, we had bookings through October, a waiting list for weekend programs, and inquiries from 3 Chicago hotels about exclusive partnerships. Maya's sabotage had backfired spectacularly, forcing us to innovate in ways that made the business stronger. Addison moved into the beach house permanently in August, her massage practice now fully integrated with our retreat offerings. Mornings began with coffee on the deck overlooking Lake Michigan. Evenings ended with her warm body pressed against mine as waves whispered against the shore. The Henderson Group wants to book a full week in September, she announced, reviewing emails over breakfast. 30 executives, team-building exercises, stress management workshops. They're offering double our usual rate. I nearly choked on my coffee. 30 people? Our insurance only covers 25. Already handled. Called our agent yesterday, upgraded the policy. Also ordered additional massage tables and hired 2 part-time instructors. Her efficiency still amazed me. While I focused on water safety and surf instruction, she'd become the business brain behind our operation, handling everything from marketing to liability coverage with natural skill. What would I do without you? She looked up from her laptop, blue eyes sparkling with mischief. Hopefully you'll never have to find out. The courthouse summons arrived on a Tuesday, Maya's legal team finally ready to press their claims. Partnership dissolution, asset division, financial compensation for 5 years of allegedly unauthorized business operations. Numbers that would bankrupt me, destroy everything we'd built. She's bluffing, our lawyer said during an emergency meeting. These contracts have more holes than a fishing net. Problem is, fighting them will cost almost as much as settling. How much to make this go away? Addison asked. The number he quoted made me feel sick. Every cent we'd saved, every profit from the retreat business, plus loans against the property. Maya would walk away rich while we started over from scratch. There has to be another option, I said. There is. We prove the contracts were signed under fraudulent circumstances. Maya claiming exclusive partnership while maintaining relationships with competitors, misrepresenting her financial contributions, failing to disclose conflicts of interest. Can we prove that? If we can subpoena her business records from the last 5 years, email communications, financial statements, partnership agreements with other ventures. Addison leaned forward. What are the chances of winning? 60-40 in our favor. Maybe 70-30 if we can demonstrate a pattern of fraudulent business practices. Those odds should have been encouraging, but legal battles had a way of destroying everything they touched, guilty and innocent alike. Maya knew that, was counting on it. I need time to think, I said. That evening, Addison found me on the pier watching sunset paint the water in shades of gold and crimson. She sat beside me without speaking. Her presence more comforting than any words could have been. You're going to tell me we should settle, she said finally. If we fight and lose, we lose everything. If we settle, at least we keep the retreat business. And if we fight and win, Maya disappears forever, and we own our future free and clear. She was quiet for several minutes, watching waves roll toward shore with the same rhythm that had centered my life for decades. I've been thinking about risk assessment, she said. Professional hazard in massage therapy. Sometimes patients want me to work beyond safe limits, push harder, dig deeper. They're willing to accept injury if it means faster results. What's your point? My point is, some risks are worth taking. Some fights are worth having, even when the outcome isn't certain. She turned to face me fully, her expression serious but unafraid. Maya is betting that you'll choose safety over justice, that you're too scared to fight for what's yours. She's been wrong about you before. What if we lose? Then we lose together. But what if we win? The question hung between us like morning mist over the lake. What if we won? What if Maya's manipulation finally caught up with her? What if standing up to bullies actually worked? You're sure about this? I asked. I'm sure about us. Everything else is just details. That night, she made love to me with an intensity that felt like promise and declaration combined. Her hands traced every curve, her mouth following paths that made me forget everything except the present moment. When I arched beneath her touch, gasping her name, she whispered reassurances against my skin. Whatever happens in court, this is real, she said, fingers tangled in my hair. Maya can threaten the business, but she can't touch what we have. Later, as we lay exhausted and intertwined, moonlight streaming through bedroom windows, she traced lazy patterns on my shoulder. I love you, Kylie Torres. Not your business, not your property, not your potential. You. Even if we end up broke and starting over? Especially then. That's when you'll know for certain that someone loves you for yourself. Wednesday morning, I called our lawyer, filed a countersuit. We're going to fight. Maya's response was swift and vicious. More client cancellations, whispered rumors about safety violations, anonymous complaints to the Coast Guard about our safety protocols. She was fighting dirty, using every connection and manipulation technique in her arsenal. But something had changed in me. Instead of retreating, I fought back. Client testimonials countering her rumors, safety certifications displayed prominently, social media campaigns showcasing successful retreat programs. For every attack, we had a response. She's getting desperate, Addison observed, watching Maya's latest attempt to discredit our insurance coverage get demolished by actual facts. Desperate people make mistakes. She was right. Maya's increasingly frantic efforts to destroy us were leaving digital footprints, creating evidence of harassment and business interference that our lawyer could use in court. 2 more weeks until the hearing, I said, reviewing our legal brief for the 100th time. 2 more weeks until we get our lives back. Addison kissed my temple and went back to planning our next retreat program, as if the outcome was already decided, as if Maya Torres was already irrelevant to our future. Watching her work, her blonde hair catching afternoon light through the office windows, I felt something I'd never experienced before. Absolute certainty that whatever came next, we'd face it together. The water had taught me to read currents and trust my instincts. My instincts said we were going to win. The courtroom felt smaller than I'd expected, intimate enough that Maya's presence across the aisle made my skin crawl. She sat with 2 expensive lawyers, playing the role of wounded business partner with Oscar-worthy conviction. Designer suit, subtle jewelry, the perfect image of professional victimhood. Our lawyer had warned us that judges were unpredictable in partnership disputes, especially when the relationships had been personal as well as professional. Maya's team would paint me as the scorned ex-lover who'd stolen assets out of spite. Our evidence would counter with proof of her fraudulent practices. All rise for the Honorable Judge Patricia Chen. I squeezed Addison's hand as we stood. She'd insisted on being here despite having no legal obligation, her presence, steadying my nerves in ways I couldn't have anticipated 6 months ago. The proceedings began with Maya's lawyers presenting their case. Partnership agreements, financial contributions, claims of unauthorized asset transfers. They painted a picture of Maya as the injured party, the businesswoman who'd trusted her romantic partner only to be pushed out when the relationship ended. Ms. Torres violated every principle of partnership law, Maya's primary attorney declared. She unilaterally dissolved agreements, changed business operations, and has profited for 5 years from my client's initial investments. It sounded convincing. Even knowing the truth, I could see how a judge might view this as a simple case of business partnership gone wrong due to personal animosity. Then our lawyer stood up. Your Honor, we're not here because of a failed business partnership. We're here because Maya Torres has spent the last 5 years perfecting a pattern of fraudulent business practices that extends far beyond her relationship with my client. The evidence we'd subpoenaed was devastating. Email chains showing Maya using similar contracts with 3 other women in different cities. Financial records proving she'd claimed exclusive partnerships while simultaneously investing in competing businesses. Documentation of her systematically extracting herself from commitments the moment relationships ended, leaving former partners holding debt and legal liability. This isn't love gone wrong, our lawyer continued. This is a predator who uses romantic relationships to gain access to legitimate business opportunities, then exploits legal loopholes to profit from other people's work. Maya's face went white as Judge Chen reviewed the evidence. Financial records, email communications, testimony from other women who'd been victimized by identical schemes. A pattern so clear it was impossible to dismiss as coincidence. Ms. Torres, the judge said, addressing Maya directly, you've claimed exclusive partnership with Ms. Kylie Torres, while simultaneously maintaining similar arrangements with 3 other individuals in Portland, Denver, and Austin. How do you explain these contradictions? Maya's composure cracked slightly. Those were separate business ventures, Your Honor. Different industries, different markets, with identical contract language, identical partnership percentages, and identical dissolution clauses. That seems extraordinarily coincidental. The hearing stretched into the afternoon, but the outcome was becoming clear. Judge Chen was methodical, professional, and increasingly skeptical of Maya's explanations. When presented with evidence of Maya's attempts to sabotage our current business through client intimidation and false complaints, her patience evaporated entirely. This court finds that the original partnership agreements were procured through fraud and misrepresentation, Judge Chen declared. Furthermore, the plaintiff's recent actions constitute harassment and business interference. All claims against Ms. Kylie Torres are dismissed with prejudice. Maya's lawyers immediately began discussing appeals. But Judge Chen wasn't finished. Additionally, this court is awarding legal fees and damages to the defendant in the amount of $75,000 to be paid within 60 days. Ms. Torres, if you pursue further legal action against Ms. Kylie Torres, I will consider it harassment subject to contempt proceedings. The gavel fell with finality that echoed through the courtroom. Maya gathered her papers with shaking hands, her lawyers already backing away from what had become a professional disaster. She looked across the aisle once, her eyes meeting mine with something between hatred and grudging respect. Then she was gone, and it was over. Outside the courthouse, Addison threw her arms around me with such exuberance that we nearly fell down the steps. "We won," she said, laughing and crying simultaneously. "We actually won." "You won," I corrected. "Your idea to dig into her other business relationships, your insistence that we fight instead of settle. This victory is yours. This victory is ours. Everything we do from now on is ours." She kissed me right there on the courthouse steps, in front of lawyers and reporters and anyone else who cared to watch. A year ago, such public displays would have terrified me. Now they felt like freedom. 3 months later, the Torres White Wellness Retreat was booked solid through next summer. Maya's court-ordered payment had funded expansion, professional marketing, and comprehensive insurance coverage. What she'd intended to destroy had become stronger than ever. More importantly, what Addison and I had built together had proved unbreakable. We were reviewing bookings on the deck when she pulled out a small velvet box, setting it on the table between our coffee mugs like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Addison, I know we've talked about taking things slow, building the business first, making sure we're compatible long-term, but Maya taught me something important." "What's that?" "Life's too short to waste time on fear, too precious to spend worrying about what might go wrong, instead of celebrating what's going right." She opened the box, revealing a simple platinum band with a single diamond. Nothing flashy, nothing designed to impress others, just a promise made tangible. "Kylie Torres, will you marry me?" The question hung in the air like morning mist over Lake Michigan, beautiful and ephemeral and full of possibility. A year ago, I would have found a dozen reasons to say no. Too soon, too complicated, too many risks. Now, looking at this woman who'd fought for us when I was ready to surrender, who'd turned my greatest weakness into our greatest strength, who loved me not despite my flaws but because of them, only one answer made sense. Yes. She slipped the ring onto my finger with hands that shook slightly, then kissed me with the passion of someone who'd just claimed her future. Around us, Lake Michigan stretched toward the horizon, its currents carrying possibilities we were brave enough to embrace. At 56, I'd finally learned that some risks are worth taking, that some currents lead to destinations more beautiful than you dared imagine. The water had taught me to trust the unknown. Addison had taught me to trust love.